Resident Evil 4 was first released on the GameCube on January the 11th, 2005, and since then it has been ported to 11 f***ing consoles. But the ones I'm playing for this review is the Resident Evil Ultimate HD Edition and the PC port. Resident Evil 4 had a pretty rough development. 4 versions of the game were supposedly scrapped by the developers before the finished product was finally achieved. Development started for Resident Evil 4 in 1999, but the first version was scrapped and later turned into its own game. In this version of Resident Evil 4, the main character would be Tony Redgrave instead of Leon. In his backstory, he was said to be the son of Oswald Spencer, as well as this Tony was said to have been given superpowers and was also rumoured to use a sword. This idea was then revamped and used in another game which goes under the name of Devil May Cry. The main character's name was later changed to Dante, and Tony Redgrave was used as an alias. The second discarded idea for Resident Evil 4 is labelled as the Fog version, and the development of this was started at the end of 2001 and was said to be 40% completed before getting thrown away. This revision saw Leon S. Kennedy as the game's main protagonist, in which he was caught struggling to survive after having infiltrated a castle-like environment which was deemed to be Umbrella's new headquarters. And this game, unlike the final version, had the traditional Resident Evil zombies make a return. An interesting idea was presented in this scrapped Resident Evil 4 revision. It was that Leon would get infected by the progenitor virus and would possess a hidden power in his left hand. This was all the information we ever got about this version, besides a different girl besides Ashley was meant to appear, but this character was never revealed to the public. At E3 2003, Capcom showcased the supposed next Resident Evil game, which this version, upon being scrapped, was given the name the Hookman version, or amongst fans is commonly known as Biohazard 3.5. The story was set in a haunted building, where Leon caught a strange disease which had him battling against paranormal enemies who came across as hallucinations. These enemies would include suited knights, baby dolls, and this version's namesake, the Hookman. It displayed many mechanics that found its way over into the final release, like the QuickTime events, the third-person camera, and the laser sight. From the looks of its gameplay, the game was meant to implement both fixed camera angles with auto-aim, as well as third-person cameras with independent aim. But alas, the game was unfortunately discarded, as it would simply cost too much, and the game needed to have 2 worlds, one for reality and the other for Leon's hallucinations, which this would simply be far too much for the Nintendo GameCube to handle. Despite the development team being split up into 2 in order to finish both RE4 and DMC, quite a few similarities can be pointed out, for example the main side character being blonde, both games having the old castle setting, as well as finally, both of the games being set out in chapters. 6 years have passed since Resident Evil 2, and Leon has now become a secret agent working under the President. It's the perfect shift for his character, considering the game is far more action-orientated than the previous Resident Evil games. Leon gets sent to retrieve the President's daughter all on his own.
What? All by yourself?
He is led to a small local village located in Spain. In the meeting with his first local, he is made to neutralize this game's first enemy. Once we kill this local, we hear an engine revving, and the 2 officers who help direct us here can be found shortly after inside of a ditch with their vehicle. Things shortly go downhill for Leon after this. He gets attacked by more locals, and just before this we obtain transmission from this game's main supporting character, Ingrid Hunnigan, who acts as a guide for Leon. She sends us a tutorial to the game, before finding ourselves inside the village. In taking a view from afar, we see a dead police officer surrounded by more of the hostile locals. Leon runs inside of a nearby open house, and this is where we get the first real segment of horror. We are introduced to the Chainsaw Man, to which, if we are not careful, it's a one-shot kill. This section teaches you game mechanics, and once this area is all cleared, it promotes curiosity. You get rewarded for searching the area. You'll find more money, ammunition, and healables the more you look around. These things help whilst the game progresses, as you'll most likely need all of these things for buying upgrades, having spare bullets which will be necessary as you'll find yourself using a lot of ammo, and the best way to conserve your ammunition is by killing 2 enemies at once. And finally, the healables are greatly required in order to beat the game, as Resident Evil 4 is rather challenging. Whilst in the village, Leon is captured by its chief, Torres Mendez.
Perfect. The big cheese. What?
Upon getting taken, he is injected with Las Plagas. He isn't held captive for long though. He's been stored alongside of Luis Serra, who also is a former police officer. The two manage to escape and then go their own separate ways. Leon finds out that Ashley is being held at a church, and after a while we end up rescuing her from it.
Ashley!
Don't come!
Hey! Take it easy.
No! Get away!
During the church escape, we have an unexpected run-in with the leader of the Los Illuminados, Osmond Sadler. He reveals his plans to manipulate the injected Ashley to get her father injected, which in turn would allow Sadler to conquer the United States. We have a battle to the death with Chief Mendez, get attacked some more at a castle, run into Ramon Salazar, another one of Sadler's henchmen, and then Leon and Ashley are separated.
You alright?
I'm fine! Leave me alone!
Ashley, wait! Ashley!
What's going on?
Louis Serra finds us both the sample for Las Plagas and some medication to prevent its growth, but once he runs into Leon, Sadler is forced to kill him. Another key part of the story inside the castle happens to be when Leon first encounters Ada Wong again. This encounter is so sick. The concentration being put on the gun, we see Ada get the gun, and it's like, what can Leon do now? Well,
Bit of advice, try using knives next time. Works better for close encounters.
we kill Salazar in a battle that looks cooler than it is, and then Leon travels to a nearby island at which Ashley was taken to. He finds out that his former comrade Jack Krauser was responsible for the kidnapping of Ashley, and at the same time a fight breaks out to where the cinematography, camera angles and the QuickTime events all set up perfectly, and the way both Leon and Krauser look as if they are equal at combat skills helps make this fight far more tense than it has any right to be. Sadler has ordered Krauser to kill Leon, believing that no matter which one dies, both will contribute to his benefit. He makes this clear to Leon afterwards that he was trying to get rid of Krauser anyway.
So, it seems you killed Krauser too. How shall I return my appreciation?
What are you talking about? I thought he was with you.
What are you talking about? Did you really think I'd trust an American? To tell you the truth, I was contemplating how to get rid of him.
After Krauser's death, we rescue Ashley, remove the Plagas via the device they have that removes the Plagas. But a minor complaint I have is, why do they have a device that removes the Plagas that they're trying to spread? Isn't that kind of the point to have a virus that can't be cured? But I could be wrong. Once they remove the virus, Leon confronts Sadler, and with Ada's contribution he blows Sadler to smithereens. However, Ada snags the sample and leaves in a helicopter, while starting a self-destruction, so Leon is forced to escape with Ashley on a jet ski. Resident Evil 4 is a very good game. It is so highly rated by almost everyone and tends to appear in a lot of the best games of all time listings. I find this game very enjoyable, and for me it is easily one of the best in the Resident Evil franchise. I personally prefer the Resident Evil 2 remake that came out not so long ago though. Resident Evil 4's biggest change is the new camera angle. The original games have fixed camera angles and tank controls, but RE4 has a third-person camera, and now Leon can be moved with a joystick with full 360-degree analog control. This gives players the ability to aim at specific body parts. The game uses a crippling limbs mechanic, which makes the action sections far more fluid and gives more options in combat, as stunning an enemy with a shot to the head can lead to a roundhouse kick, or a shot to the knee can either cause the enemy to fall over, or fall to their knees, opening them up to a suplex. Where you shoot matters. Shooting limbs, shooting dynamite to blow a few enemies in the proximity up, as well as you can shoot flying projectiles to prevent them coming any closer, so not only the ammunition can be used to obviously attack, but it can also be used to deflect and defend yourself. The other major difference in comparison to the previous Resident Evil games is the incredibly polished animation. In the PS1 titles, all movement in cutscenes and even gameplay is relatively stiff, and then compare it to Resident Evil 4's.
Freeze! I said freeze!
Resident Evil wasn't known for its action-orientated moves like dodging, kicking, or even suplexing before this. It was mainly known for its puzzles and horror sequences, which Resident Evil 4 still has these segments, it just expands significantly in every other area, which makes it an incredibly impressive game. It even keeps the classic health indications like being on caution, fine, or danger. The action in Resident Evil 4 is very fast-paced. There are a few QuickTime events to help demonstrate this. and the action and the QuickTime events are the most notable when it comes to the fight with Jack Krauser.
After all, you and I both know where we come from. What do you want?
They require you to keep your eyes on the screen, and you need to stay alert since you never know when a QuickTime event is going to happen. This mechanic is one that suits the game perfectly. The only other game I enjoyed with QuickTime events was God of War, and in both of these games it helps fuel the immersion. The dialogue in Resident Evil 4 is a huge step up from the previous Resident Evils. Even if you're nostalgic over Resident Evil 1, you cannot even compare the two of these together.
I don't know what happened.
Barry! Where's Barry?
Cornel, why am I the one who always gets the short end of the stick?
You, who are you really? Come on and tell us. You are a long way from home, cowboy. You have my sympathies.
Guess that's a local's way of breaking the ice. Anyway, you know what this is all about. My assignment is to search for the president's missing daughter.
What? All by yourself?
I'm sure you boys didn't just tag along so we could sing Kumbaya together at some Boy Scout bonfire. But then again, maybe you did.
Leon's cheesy one-liners are probably the best thing in the game. As well as being a special agent working underneath the president, he also seems to be a comedian on his days off. He always has time to crack a joke or give a witty comment. This shows that the game knows how to even out all the humor, action and comedy segments into one, and they do it flawlessly. On topic of Leon's voice acting, holy fuck is Paul Mercier just the perfect fit for Leon. It's a shame they seem to plow through voice actors, because this Leon is simply the best by far.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
It's hard to develop a game that has graphics that are made to be timeless. Only games like Wind Waker and Paper Mario managed to pull it off for me, but Resident Evil 4 has some nice graphics. The visual effects are so clean, and as I've already discussed, the animations are so very crisp and they really help this game look like a movie. Mocap, or motion capture, was used in order to make the movement more realistic, but as stated in the behind the scenes, this motion capture couldn't retrieve facial movement, so in order to work around this, they were required to animate the facial expressions by hand. This is so very impressive for 2005. Resident Evil 4 is quite a challenging game. Sure, it's not incredibly difficult, but there are still many times where you can find you'll die unfairly or just by sucking really. However, the game controls the difficulty rather beautifully. There is a game mechanic which isn't something you'd know about unless you were told about it, as it is a hidden feature within the game, and that is dynamic difficulty. The more accurate the player is and the less damage the player takes, the more aggressive the enemies and bosses become. As well as this, they'll also deal more damage. However, the more you get hit and the more you die, they'll do less damage and it will lower their aggression. Not only is there dynamic difficulty, but the enemy movement is very suitable, as if enemies were constantly charging at you rocket launchers, arrow shots and electric clubs are blazing, you would simply have no chance. But these enemies will casually walk towards you, then randomly sprint or even sidestep or crouch as a way to avoid being hit, and this gives the player just enough time to evaluate the situation and plan the next move. The aiming can also contribute to the difficulty, as the aiming takes a while to get used to. This is as unlike being able to fully zoom in and just see the red dot sight like in Call of Duty. The laser sight goes at a sloped angle, which when starting out the line can be hard to match up to an enemy's brain. You'll find that a lot of people who discuss Resident Evil 4 tend to bring up their annoyance with Ashley, but with me however, I feel she is one of the best objective characters in gaming. She never tends to get stuck on any of the geography, she will always be a foot's length away from you. When you aim she glues herself to your back, there are boxes in which she can be stored in as to not get in the way or be captured whilst you explore an area, and finally, if you need to quick turn because there's an enemy behind you, as soon as you aim she will instantly crouch down, minimalising the chances of her taking damage. My only problems with Ashley being the scripted moment where she runs away into an obvious trap, the fact that one hit with almost anything will kill her, meaning you'll instantly game over, and every time she repeatedly screams. I get that it's meant to immediately trigger you into searching for Ashley, but hearing it once and then being able to determine if she was getting captured by the UI in the bottom right would be perfect for me. But with saying this, she's still a good side character. The characters in this game, damn, they are great. We've covered Ashley in terms of the gameplay, but who is she? She's the president's daughter and is 20 years old and has obviously been captured by the cult Los Illuminados. Next is Louis Serra, 28-year-old Spaniard, who early on in the game Leon becomes friends with and tries to escape the village with, but Sadler finds out about his betrayal and eventually kills him. Ingrid Hunnigan is Leon's prime support character on this mission. She is used to contact him via radio transmission and is his only link to headquarters. She provides us with plenty of in-game information, for example the tutorial she gives us at the beginning. Ada Wong is next and is easily the most interesting. It's made apparent during the Separate Ways campaign that the real reason she was sent to the organization was that she was tasked with requiring the sample for the Las Plagas under the direct order of Albert Wesker. The Separate Ways section is a playable campaign in which we play from Ada's perspective and get to see her actions during our playthrough with Leon, and this campaign manages to have a better zapper system than the whole of the RE2 remake, which is my favourite game in the franchise. But it's just sad how a side campaign was more story effective than both the Resident Evil 2 remake stories. The final main side character, and my favourite by far, is the mysterious merchant, who will be frequently encountered around blue flames which signify his shop's whereabouts. The player will be able to buy, sell or upgrade weapons from him. However, if you are evil, the merchant can be killed, but upon killing him the merchant will no longer respawn at that location, and if you're in professional mode, he won't respawn at all. The inventory in Resident Evil 4 is easily the best in the franchise, and here it is easily one of the best inventories in video game history. It's like a mini game of Tetris, and every time I'm in it, it feels so satisfying to organize it neatly. If you have your inventory like this, we cannot be friends. My final positive topic that I want to mention are the boss fights and the enemies. There are many scary enemies in this game like the Regenerators or Garradors, but amongst the scary enemies there are also enemies that come out in mobs, but each area is made to feel different as the enemies have changes in appearances. For example, the villagers, then the islanders, and even the cultists, which all have different weaponry and attack patterns. Then there's mini-bosses like the El Gigante or even the Garradors. And then besides the mini-bosses, there are also the main bosses, which all are made to look creepy. Even the most human boss, Jack Krause, gets transformed due to the Plagas. But all the fights have amazing design and most of the bosses are challenging and enjoyable. Like the Krause fight, the Chief Mendes fight, and the Sadler fight. Salazar's fight looks the coolest, but sucks so bad. I stood in place and killed him, it was that easy. This is where I begin to cover my negatives. Though they are all quite minor, the music in this game is not good. The drive and the save room music are amazing, but besides from that, here and there are a couple okay musical pieces, but the rest are just mostly ambience. This is still better than Resident Evil 2's Remake, as most of the songs in that game is just ambience. Another minor negative I have is when the game freezes to show a cutscene. As I say, it's only a minor problem, but it just takes you out of the gameplay for a second to freeze. Then play the cutscene, and some of the cutscenes in the Ultimate HD version haven't even been fully ported to high definition, as the whole Separate Ways campaign was in low quality, and even a couple in the regular campaign I found were also low quality. But finally, I didn't really enjoy any of the castle entrance segment. This bit just sucked for me, and I had such a difficult time passing this area. Either me or Ashley would get hit by a flame cannonball, and I couldn't leave Ashley behind as I found out she would get captured. Upon beating Resident Evil 4, extra game modes are unlocked as well as a rocket launcher and Leon's classic gun model, Matilda. These are weapons that are made accessible to the player. Not only this, but there's a new difficulty, Professional, that will be unlocked, and Leon's classic RPD outfit from Resident Evil 2 can be worn, which is a very nice touch. But finally, my final rating for Resident Evil 4 is a 9.4 out of 10. Thank you for watching and thank you for the patience. This is the longest a video has taken to finish. All the extra game modes and finishing the game on professional and normal took a few days. I don't really know what the next video is going to be. I'm thinking of switching it up and discussing some mods and emulation. But besides from that, the games I have lined up next are Skyward Sword, Paper Mario, and Mario Kart Double Dash, but not necessarily in that order. So, bye.